Hello, welcome to my channel. I trust you are doing very well. Thank you for the support, guys. Thank you for subscribing to my YouTube channel. Thank you for the new viewers. Please like, comment, subscribe, and then turn on your notification button for new videos. For my returning subscribers, I appreciate. Thank you. Because of you, I am here. Today we'll be looking at the connective tissue. We'll look at the cells of the connective tissues, the fibers, the ground substance, types of connective tissues, and a lot more. Connective tissue are a group of tissues which connects or bind other tissues in the body. They are responsible for providing and maintaining form in the body. That's the connective tissue. What are the general characteristics of the connective tissue? They are made up of fewer cells that are set far apart. Fewer cells that are set far apart. That means there are actually fewer cells, but they are being spread in a wider volume or diameter. They are supported by abundant intercellular substance. They also contain connective tissue fibers, different content of the intercellular substance. Connective tissue cells and fibers account for the difference in appearance of various connective tissues. That is the constituent of the intercellular substance, the connective tissue cell itself, and even the fibers present or forms the different presentations that we see in connective tissues. General functions include providing a matrix that serves to connect and bind the cells and organs together. Connective tissue also provides or protects against infections. They give mechanical support to the body, storage of fat and certain minerals like calcium in the bones, exchange of metabolites between blood and tissue, significant role in the repair and healing of wounds. Fibroblasts, of course, you know that. Fibroblasts plays this major role. Now let's look at connective tissue in terms of components and in terms of composition. Connective tissue. So components of connective tissues are basically either cells or matrix. Of course, you know what cells are. The living unit, okay? And the matrix are more or less the fluid substance that the cells are found. Now, the matrix is divided into two: the ground substance or the fibers. The ground substance or the fiber. The ground substance are basically the fluidy nature, the fluid presentation, the fluidy background. All the fibers are maybe the elastic fibers, you know, those ones are the fibers, while the ground substance are basically the ground or the basic presentation, the fluidy nature that every other things are embedded in. Now let's look at the component in terms of cells and matrix, ground substance, fibers. So for the cells are mostly divided into two major groups. Some of them are fixed cells or permanent cells. They remain in their permanent location. You know that if you go to this location, you see this cell. And some of them are actually wandering cells. That means they move from one location to the other. Most times they go through the blood. You know, they move through the blood. So for the fixed cells, there are the fibroblasts, the adipocytes, the persistent mesenchymal cells. Whereas the wandering cells include the macrophages, the mast cells, plasma cells, pigment cells, eosinophils, eosinophils are, as well as the neutrophils. Okay, for the matrix are either ground substance or the fibers. The ground substance are made up of majorly the proteoglycans. They are also made of the sulfuric background or the non-sulfuric background. Okay, that's the GAG and then the MPS. Then on the fibers, they are either elastic fibers, I've mentioned before, reticular fibers, or the collagen fibers. Now, you should be able to pick this detailed information in case you are in exam hall. You know, the purpose of this our presentation is to give you a marking scheme standard. Now, if you look at the component of the connective tissue cells or the connective tissue, the cells are either fixed or wandering cells. They are fixed because they remain in their location. They are wandering because they leave from location A to location B. So those ones that are present in their location and is known for their location are either they are the fibroblasts, adipocytes, persistent mesenchymal cells. Those ones that are moving, wandering, include the neutrophil, eosinophil, the pigment cells, the plasma cells, the mast cells, and then the macrophages. For the matrix that are divided either ground substance or the fiber, the ground substance are split either proteoglycans or the GAG or MPS, which further split into either sulfuric background or non-sulfuric substance. While the fibers are the major three fibers, we know the collagen, the elastic, and then the reticular fibers. Now, classification of connective tissues. Connective tissues are basically classified into three major groups. They are 1. Connective tissue proper, connective tissue with specialized properties or specialized connective tissues, and then the supporting connective tissues. Now let's look at that again. The connective tissue proper, they are either loose connective tissue or the dense connective tissue. The dense connective tissue is further divided into regular or the irregular connective tissue, dense connective tissue. While the connective tissue with specialized properties include the adipocytes or the adipose connective tissue, elastic connective tissue, hematopoietic, that is connective tissue, that is the lymphatic and then the myeloid, as well as the mucous connective tissues. While the supporting connective tissues are cartilage and bone. That's classification. Let's further go down. Okay. Connective tissue in adult and fetal life, during adult and fetal life. In adult, you see, there are ordinary connective tissues that are for the adult, or either ordinary or specialized connective tissues. Now, okay. For the ordinary connective tissues in the adult, you have the loose connective tissues and then the dense connective tissues. Remember, we have talked about the classifications of connective tissues to include connective tissue proper, which is either loose connective tissue or dense connective tissue that are further split into either regular or irregular. Remember that. And then we have talked about the supporting connective tissues as well as the specialized connective tissues. Now, the ordinary connective tissues that are loose or dense, that is the proper connective tissues. The loose connective tissues include the areola, the adipose, and then the reticular. For the dense connective tissues, they include either regular or irregular connective tissues. For the regular connective tissues, they include the tendon, the ligament, the aponeurosis, while the irregular connective tissues include subcutaneous tissues. The specialized connective tissues are the blood, the cartilage, and the bone. Further classification. After we have classified them into proper, specialized, and supporting connective tissues, We further classified connective tissue proper into loose and dense. The dense we further split it into regular and irregular, and then the specialized, which is blood, cartilage, and bone. Okay, now the composition of connective tissues. Composition of connective tissues. Connective tissue cells, we have mentioned that before. Connective tissue fibers, intercellular or the ground substance, and then the blood vessels, except in mucous connective tissue and in cartilage. This is the basic component or composition of the connective tissue. The connective tissue cells, fibers, ground substance, and then the blood vessels. Okay, let's look at this. Let's look at this. This is a schematic presentation of the connective tissue itself. Okay. Schematic presentation. Now, this is a typical presentation of a supposed connective tissue. Now, all the three major components of the connective tissue, that is the connective tissue proper, specialized connective tissue, the specialized connective tissue, are all here. The irregular, that's for the dense, and then the regular, as well as the blood vessel. So, a typical elastic fiber for the fiber, a typical reticular cell for the fiber, wandering cells, see the macrophages, okay, see a typical lymphocyte, a typical collagen fiber, a typical neutrophil, a plasma cell, okay, is a fibroblast, a mast cell, and then the ground substance. All these are embedded in the ground substance. So the ground substance is very important. The whole of this is the ground substance. All these structures are actually embedded in the ground substance. Okay. Connective tissue cells. Connective tissue cells. We have mentioned either they are fixed or permanent connective tissue, as well as wandering cells, fixed cells or wandering cells. So fixed cells are native to the tissue in which they are found. That is, they are always there. One of such is undifferentiated mesenchymal cells, the fibroblasts, the macrophages, the fat cells. Remember the other time we mentioned adipose, when you see fat, you say fat or adipose cells, they are the same thing. While the wandering cells, cells that can move from one location to the other, okay, including cells that can, change their nature over time. This one belongs to the wandering cells. So they are actually immigrant cells. Usually they come from blood or the bone marrow. Some retain their original characteristics and may take up permanent residence where they are. So they include the mast cells, the plasma cells, the pigment cells, the blood leukocytes, blood leukocytes. So these are the wandering cells. Okay, so this is a diagrammatic presentation of how these cells actually appear. Look at the typical fibroblast. It's slender, okay, with a slender nucleus. Look at the typical plasma cells, rounded with a nucleus towards the periphery. And look at the typical fat cells, or adipose cells, with the nucleus on the periphery already. Okay, look at a typical lymphocyte with a large nucleus at the central portion, macrophages with more than one nucleus, or not more than one nucleus, a horse-shaped presentation of a nucleus, and then supposing trap stops inside. Now look at a typical eosinophil with double cells or nucleus connecting with this tiny strand. Neutrophil with more than 1, 2, 3, 4 to 5 nucleus. Okay, typical lymphocyte, small lymphocyte with a nucleus almost filling the cytoplasm. Okay, the cytoplasm is left like a thread-like presentation. And look at the typical mast cell. All this